What's up, YouTube? It's Lego again, Coach White Belt, although technically I'm not a white belt anymore. My coach, Brian Peterson, awarded me my blue belts a couple weeks ago, so proud to say I'm a new blue belt. And what I'm going to talk about today is something that I think a lot of parents run into, and the parents who train can maybe tell one from another, but the parents who don't train, I imagine, would have a lot of difficulty, which is finding a good martial arts school or training gym for your kid. So my son stays with me for weekends and holidays, and stays with his mom during the school time, and we live a couple hours apart, so he trains when he's here with me. Of course, I take him to the gym with me, and I take him to his karate sensei's gym, Sensei Don Gipti, who's a 3-time karate Hall of Famer. And I was trying to look for a gym for him over by his mom's house where she can take him, and the thing is, I can't go out to all the gyms out there and see how good they are to choose a good one. And so the only thing I can go off of is what I see on their website, what I can read. So his mom found a Taekwondo school there nearby where she lives. So she sent me the link to this school, and I was reading about the head instructor, the owner, and immediately I made the decision that I don't want my son to train at this school. And not because it's a Taekwondo school, because my son, of course, trains karate, and the two styles are very similar. You learn the same kicks, the same blocks, the same stances and stuff like that. The sparring, it varies from one style to another in karate, and also from karate to Taekwondo. So that's not the issue I had with it, because I feel like they're very, very similar. The issue I had with it was when I was reading about the instructor. So the instructor there is I believe he's a 3rd or 4th degree black belt in Taekwondo, but it said on their website that he earned his black belt, his 1st degree black belt, when he was 12, after training for 4 years. So one reason I have an issue with this is, first of all, in the World Taekwondo Federation style, you are ineligible to receive a black belt until you're 16 years of age. Similarly, in karate, you are ineligible to receive a black belt until you're 15 years of age. And in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're ineligible to receive even your blue belt until the age of 16. And this is for a number of reasons, and they're pretty good reasons. And so an adult can learn quite a lot in a short period of time relative to what a child is capable of. And this is very evident to me as an adult who trains jiu-jitsu and who trains kids in jiu-jitsu. So some of the kids will make mistakes, the kids who have been training for a few years now, and they make mistakes that an adult would get out of the habit of within months, or within a year. And the kids still make these very, very basic mistakes. And so that's one good reason, is that it takes a lot longer for a child to learn than it does for an adult, at least for the purposes of martial arts. And the other being that they're not physically nor emotionally nor mentally mature enough to really be deserving of a black belt meaning what it means in any particular style, right? In Taekwondo and karate, meaning that you are proficient at this art and are capable of possibly teaching people. And there is so much to martial arts that's that has to do with the fighting itself, right? The self-defense aspect of it, where an adult can really understand the context of fighting and how their particular martial art applies to it, and how the various positions and various attacks and various defenses really work in tandem with one another. And as a child, it sort of has to be explained to them, and they don't quite grasp it the way that an adult would be able to, with their limited life experience and limited mental capacity relative to that of an adult. And so to receive a black belt at such a young age really doesn't make much sense. And this isn't the only school that does this. If you look up videos of various taekwondo schools or karate schools, you'll see sometimes little kids with black belts and their technique is terrible, and they definitely couldn't fight if they had to. And I think that this is a real disservice to the idea of self-defense and martial arts, because a black belt is supposed to mean that you are proficient at this particular style. Maybe not that you're the best fighter, right? Because if you're a black belt at karate, it means that you're good at using your karate for its intended purposes, to punch and kick and block and throw. And so that doesn't mean that you're supposed to be superb at passing guard and finishing kimuras and stuff like that, because that's not part of the curriculum. But it does mean that you should be pretty good at the techniques that are used in karate for the purposes of self-defense and for karate competition. And there are various schools who focus very much on forms, which is essentially how you actually earn your belts in either of these two styles. Is most of it comes from the forms, the preset forms of punching and kicking and blocking in the air that are supposed to simulate fighting. It's supposed to be similar to shadow boxing, which is that they have an actual application and all of the motions are supposed to represent an actual combative movement, but without anybody actually being there for you to attack or defend from. So if you learn these forms, you can work your way through the belt system in karate, Heian Shodan and Heian Nidan and so on. And so through learning these various kata, you're supposed to earn your ranks. But the problem with that is that if you don't do any sparring, or you don't do enough sparring, then you don't really learn how to apply these things, right? So at our Sensei Gipti's class, it's only 2 days a week nowadays, and it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so my son goes to this class, and Tuesdays they spend a good amount of time practicing various techniques that he has them do. And then for the latter half of the Tuesday class, they practice kata. They practice their form. And then on Thursdays, they do sort of the same thing, except that they don't do kata for the second half of it. They do sparring. And so the kids really develop an ability to spar. Although a kid might be able to do a roundhouse really well and do a turning side kick really well and do a front kick really well and things like that, if they can't do it in sparring, when someone else is trying to kick and punch them and block their attacks, then they're not going to figure out how to move in and move out and how to get an angle on their opponent and how to land their kicks and how to have power in their attacks. So sparring is a really big part of it, which is why jiu-jitsu specifically, and wrestling and boxing and Muay Thai, why they're so effective. Because you spend so much time sparring, and your belt is not at all dependent, well, right, because some styles don't have belts at all, like boxing, but in jiu-jitsu, your belt is supposed to represent that your coach feels that you are deserving of that rank by demonstrating your actual ability to perform your techniques to beat someone else in a grappling match, a submission grappling jiu-jitsu competition, sparring sessions and such. And so if karate belts and taekwondo belts were based solely on this, whether you can out kickbox somebody essentially using these forms or these techniques, then the belts would be more closely tied to one's abilities. And in jiu-jitsu, it is that way. You know, if you're you know a bunch of techniques, but you can't pull any of them off in sparring, then those techniques are essentially worthless. Or the techniques themselves are not worthless, but you haven't developed them enough to really be able to pull them off. And so you're undeserving of the next rank. And so a blue belt generally is going to win a match against a white belt of similar size and strength. And a purple belt will be able to do that to blue belts. And a brown belt will be able to do that to purple belts. And a black belt will be able to do that to brown belts, and so on. So this has held true so far in what I've seen in Sensei Dungifty's class, that the purple belts are definitely better at fighting than the orange belts, and the orange belts are definitely better at fighting than the yellow belts, and the brown belts are really good, and the black belts are incredible. And so I've really liked his class, and that's why I've taken my son to train there. But since looking for a school for my son and seeing this Taekwondo school, their website stating that their head instructor received his black belt at the age of 12 after training for 4 years. There's no way, even if he were a real prodigy, that he would be able to develop real fighting ability within the ages of 8 to 12. And then he received his second degree black belt 1 year later at the age of 13, and then received his third degree black belt at the age of 15, which, mind you, is still before the age requirement for a black belt in Taekwondo in the first place. So another thing that I saw on this website was that they offer things like, if you sign your kid up for a minimum of so many classes or so many months of classes, that they include things like parties at the dojang. And these are incentives to get kids or get parents to sign their kids up that really hold no value in terms of developing a child's ability to defend themselves or develop abilities related to the particular style, Taekwondo in this case. These sorts of things don't really improve that in any way. And then there are things like black belt clubs, which I've seen in various schools, karate schools, Taekwondo schools, that if you sign your kid up for a certain amount of time right out the gate, that by the end of it they'll receive their black belts. And realistically, there's no way to guarantee or ensure that the child should be even deserving of a certain rank within any set amount of time. Because the kid could show up and have put in very little effort and not be interested at all, and do the bare minimum to not get yelled at in class, basically. And really not get any better throughout those 4 or 5 years or whatever it is. And especially if you sign them up at like the age of 5, and then by the time they're 9 years old, they're supposed to be getting their black belts when they've put in no effort and still have no ability to defend themselves. It's a real disservice to martial arts and self-defense. And these sorts of things are to a parent who doesn't train and has no experience, and so no contrast. These sorts of things, they sound enticing and inviting, and reassuring perhaps, but they're really just selling points. You know, they give you a discount if you sign up for a year instead of paying month to month, and they will guarantee your kid gets a black belt within a certain amount of time and things like that, and it's a real disservice. So I took a look at this website and immediately decided I don't want my kid to go to the school. And I could be wrong about the instructor. You know, maybe he grew up in a questionable system, and maybe he received his rank in a questionable way, but could really be a great fighter and a great Taekwondo practitioner, and maybe a great martial artist and be a great role model and things like that. But because I can't go and check it out and see it for myself, and maybe get on the mat with him and spar with him or some of his students, and see what they're about and what their their level of skill really is, without any of that being available to me, I have to go based on specifically what I can read, what I can see, and what I can hear, what I can the reviews and stuff that their school has, and even then, that's all testimony from people who, you know, perhaps have no martial arts training themselves. And the other thing I saw in there is that they teach Krav Maga also. And I'm not gonna say that Krav Maga is a garbage style, and that there's no point in learning it, and there's that it's a terrible system and none of them know what they're doing. But in my experience, that does happen to be the case, that it's a very conceptual martial art with quote unquote application, and really like knife disarming and weapons disarming sort of stuff. It's just, there's no real way to test that sort of thing. And honestly, the best way to handle a situation like that is through grappling. And even then, you would probably still get stabbed enough times to possibly die before even being able to disarm the person. So those were more than enough reasons for me to say that I would not sign my kid up for this. Even if I didn't check the prices, but even if it's $100, which is less than I pay for jiu-jitsu, even if it's $60 a month, or even if it's $30 a month, honestly, I would rather pay for my son's sensei to do a private lesson with him. You know, that I drive my son over to his house and have him instruct him for an hour, and maybe get a sparring session in with one of the other kids. And I'd much rather pay the $30 or whatever it is for my son to get one personal class from a good instructor than to go to a school that is, and I don't know if this is true or not, but to go to take him to a school that is completely worthless in terms of being able to teach my son to defend himself using the particular style in which they profess. So, if you're a parent who's looking for a school and you see things like this, you see the Black Belt Club, and you see, you know, that they offer a party and they offer discounts for this and that reason, and they have a cancellation fee, and there's a contract to sign up and all of this stuff, there's a good chance it's not a good school. And if their instructor earned their black belt in a year, then it's probably worthless. And if their instructor would earn their black belts before they should even be eligible, it's probably worthless. And of course, you know, I could be wrong. This instructor could be awesome. But by just judging by what I read, I would say that's likely not the case. So if you're looking for a martial art for your kid, and of course this depends, right? If you want your child to learn about a culture, if you want them to learn about Japanese culture, and you want them to learn how to perform punches and kicks and stuff like that, and you want them to learn to be a little more disciplined and things like that, then you can take them to a school that is really good for that. And maybe they don't come out the best fighters, but if that's not what your focus is, then that's fine, you know, to each their own. But I'm looking for a school for my son to learn karate or taekwondo sort of style for the purpose of self-defense, and I don't think this school is it. So if you're looking for a school that can teach your child to defend themselves, and you're looking in your area and are unsure because maybe you don't train yourself and you can't tell the difference, you haven't seen the contrast, you know, you're looking for a school and it's hard for you to determine whether it's a good school or not, then, you know, feel free to leave it in the comments or send me a message, and I'll look into it myself. And obviously I don't make any money on whether you send your kid to any particular school or not. But, you know, I'll give you my unbiased opinion about the school. Not just whether I'm not going to give you the answer of this school is garbage or this school is not, but I'll analyze it and come up with my ideas about the school, what I think about them, and not just as a whole, but in various aspects, all the aspects that I think are important to martial arts, or any concerns that you may particularly have. So yeah, it's been tough, it's been hard, and I would like to send my son to the there's a Gracie Baja nearby, and I know it's a good school. I train with a lot of guys from Gracie Baja, and they're all pretty good, So I'd much rather pay the $180 a month to send my son to Gracie Baja than pay $30 to a Taekwondo school who is that's not going to teach my son to do anything worthwhile for self-defense. So it's been a long rant, and maybe a little negative compared to many of my videos, but it's an issue that I've run into, and so I imagine a lot of parents out there have as well. And my recommendation for if you want your child to learn self-defense, I would say learn how to grapple. Learn how to grapple first, because being able to control someone without hitting them is a really great way to defend yourself. Being able to keep someone from hurting you, even if that means you don't have to hurt them. That's the best way to do it, So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you like the video, if you don't like the video, and why that is, please feel free to leave it in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.